In our last podcast, we began to look at the part of the United States Constitution that ensures us rights of due process. In this podcast, we'll look at more of our due process rights. My name is Dr. Rick Gardner from Columbus State University, and this is a Muskogee County School District podcast. The U.S. Constitution. Due process is a fancy way of saying legal fairness. In the Bill of Rights, Amendments 5 and 6 particularly address these issues. We've already considered the right to a grand jury and the protection against double jeopardy. Now we'll look at more of the due process rights granted in the United States Constitution. The third guarantee given in the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution is the part that most everyone knows about, the right to remain silent. This provision was aimed at preventing an injustice like that which occurred at Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. There was a man in Salem named Giles Corey. He was accused by the prosecutors of being a witch. But Mr. Corey saw the way that people who were accused of witchcraft were dealt with. If they admitted to being a witch and were sorry for it, they'd get whipped, but they could keep their lives. If they denied being a witch, they'd be executed for their refusal to confess and repent. So Giles Corey chose to do neither. He decided to remain mute, that is, to say nothing at all. But his silence infuriated the prosecutors. They wanted him to confess or to deny the crime. The judges ordered that Corey be tied to the ground and large blocks be gradually stacked on top of him until he said something. This actually went on for days until Mr. Corey died from the crushing weight. Legend has it that Giles Corey did in fact speak just before he died. But his last words were, "More weight." The founders of the United States thought that what happened to Giles Corey was just wrong. It should be the duty of the prosecutor to prove the crime that you committed without you having to admit to it. You should not be compelled to say anything that might help the prosecutor with his case. So the Fifth Amendment says that you never have to say a word to a government official if you fear that what you say may get you in trouble. Now, again, there is an exception to this rule. The amendment says you don't have to speak if you fear that what you might say could get you in trouble and put you in jeopardy of bodily punishment, something like prison or execution. But a prosecutor can get around this by offering you immunity. Immunity is a promise that no matter what you say, you won't be punished for it. This is usually used when a prosecutor really wants you to tell on someone else, but you won't do it because to do so may get you in trouble too. If you're given immunity, then you have to talk, or else you can in fact be punished just for not talking. The most famous case in history involving immunity occurred in the 1980s when a man named Colonel Oliver North, who worked at the White House, was accused of deceiving the United States Congress. The congressman who wanted to prosecute him really wanted to get him to say that President Reagan was guilty of various similar crimes. But when Colonel North was ordered to testify, he persistently pled the Fifth Amendment. So the prosecutors gave Oliver North immunity in order to force him to say that Ronald Reagan was guilty. However, under immunity, North confessed that he was the one who committed the crime of deceiving Congress and various other behaviors that prosecutors found terrible. He even told the prosecutors that he was proud of what he had done, that he did it because he felt the Congress was filled with cowards and he had to do this job for them. But he did not accuse President Reagan as they had hoped. Well, needless to say, the prosecutors and the congressmen were very upset with Colonel North, and they decided that he would have to pay for his crimes. The Supreme Court, however, pointed out clearly to the prosecutors that when they gave Colonel North immunity, they gave up their right to prosecute him. Colonel Oliver North is a free man today. Matter of fact, he's a TV star, and to some, an American hero. The next provision of the Fifth Amendment assures a citizen due process. Those two words, due process, encompass a great number of principles that are part of our legal tradition. Due process is a fancy way of saying legal fairness. That seems quite vague and ambiguous, but it implies all the common aspects of a traditional Western legal system. Some of those aspects are specifically listed in the Sixth Amendment: a jury trial, an attorney, witnesses, etc. But some aspects of due process are just assumed. The right to be told why you have been arrested or to be released, a neutral judge, the presumption of innocence, an opportunity to present your side of the story, etc. Due process is summarized and simplified as legal fairness, and the Fifth Amendment guarantees it to all of us. The last provision in the Fifth Amendment is the guarantee that if the government decides to take any of your property for the public good, the government must pay you fairly for it. This often arises when the government sees the need to take a citizen's property for the good of everybody. The most common example is when a road or an interstate needs to be constructed, and if your land is in the path of the construction of the interstate, the government may constitutionally take the land, but the Fifth Amendment requires the government to pay you a fair price for the property. The process is known as eminent domain. Okay, now let's review what the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution guarantees to all of us. First, it guarantees us a grand jury to protect us from a federal prosecutor with a personal agenda. Second, we are guaranteed that we will never suffer double jeopardy. That is, being put on trial twice for the same exact thing. Third, we have the right to remain silent. We do not have to say anything if we fear that it might get us in trouble. Fourth, we're guaranteed due process. That is, everything involved in legal fairness. And finally, we are guaranteed fair compensation in the event that the government exercises eminent domain and takes our property. In our next podcast, we'll go ahead and look at the Sixth Amendment and see several more of the benefits that you and I have in the case that we are accused of a crime. My name is Dr. Rick Gardner, and this has been a Muskogee County School District podcast, the U.S. Constitution.